Imagine waking up in a world where winter isn't an inconvenience. It's a death sentence. No supermarkets, no heaters, no insulated houses, no electricity, no weather forecasts warning you that a blizzard is coming. Only endless cold, temperatures far below freezing, snow stretching to the horizon, and a simple question that decided who lived and who vanished forever. How do you survive until spring? The strangest part? Your ancestors faced this challenge again and again. Not for weeks, not for months, for thousands of generations. And somehow, they survived. They survived ice ages, frozen landscapes, and winters so brutal that most modern people would struggle to endure even a few days. So, how did ancient humans do it? How did a species with no claws, no thick fur, and no natural protection against extreme cold manage to conquer some of the harshest environments on Earth? The answer reveals one of the greatest survival stories in human history, and it may explain why our species became unstoppable. Let's travel back tens of thousands of years. The world looked very different. Massive glaciers covered enormous portions of the planet. In some regions, walls of ice stretched for hundreds of miles. Forests disappeared. Grasslands froze. Entire ecosystems transformed. Winter wasn't just a season. For many groups, it was a way of life. Every year brought the same challenge. Food became scarce. Animals migrated. Rivers froze. One mistake could mean death. And unlike today, there was no rescue coming. Nature offered no second chances. Think about it. Humans are tropical creatures. Our distant ancestors evolved under warm African skies. Compared to animals built for cold climates, we seem completely unprepared. We don't have thick fur like mammoths. We don't have layers of blubber like seals. We don't hibernate like bears. By all logic, humans should never have spread into freezing environments. Yet they did. And they succeeded so well that they eventually occupied regions stretching from Siberia to the Arctic. How? Because humans developed something more powerful than biological adaptation. They learned to redesign the environment itself. Fire. Today it feels ordinary. You press a button, and heat appears instantly. But for ancient humans, controlled fire may have been the difference between extinction and survival. Fire created warmth where none existed. It extended the day after sunset. It allowed frozen food to be cooked. It kept predators away. It transformed caves and shelters into places where families could survive deadly nights. Imagine standing outside in a freezing blizzard, then stepping into a shelter glowing with firelight. For the first time in the history of life, a species had learned to carry a piece of the sun wherever it went. And that changed everything. But warmth alone wasn't enough. Ancient humans faced another problem. Movement. You can't hunt if you're frozen. You can't gather food if exposure kills you first. So our ancestors created one of the most important technologies ever invented. Clothing. Not simple coverings. Carefully crafted garments made from animal hides and fur. The hides of animals that had already solved the problem of winter. Think about the irony. Humans survived the cold by borrowing nature's solutions. Every stitched fur coat represented knowledge. Knowledge passed from one generation to the next. Knowledge that kept entire communities alive. And unlike fur growing on an animal's body, human clothing could improve, evolve, and adapt. But here's what most people get wrong. Ancient humans didn't survive because they were individually strong. They survived because they were never truly alone. Winter is a disaster for solitary creatures. But humans had something unique. Cooperation. Families shared food. Groups hunted together. Communities protected children and elders. Knowledge spread through storytelling. One hunter's discovery became everyone's advantage. One mistake became a lesson for the entire group. In a frozen world, survival wasn't about the strongest individual. It was about the strongest community. and that may have been humanity's greatest weapon. Of course, warmth means nothing if you're starving. Winter turned food into a constant obsession. Every successful hunt mattered. Every piece of meat mattered. Ancient humans learned to preserve food, to store resources, to track migrating animals, to exploit seasonal opportunities. They became masters of planning. While many predators lived from hunt to hunt, humans increasingly thought months ahead. The people who prepared survived. The people who didn't often disappeared. And over thousands of years, foresight became one of humanity's defining traits. But the cold gave humans something unexpected. It wasn't only an enemy, it was also a filter. Brutal winters eliminated weaknesses. They rewarded innovation. Every generation faced the same challenge: find a better way to survive, build better shelters, create warmer clothing, develop smarter hunting strategies, share knowledge more effectively. Winter became one of evolution's toughest classrooms, and humanity kept learning. So, how did ancient humans survive brutal winters? Not because they were stronger than nature, not because they were physically superior to other animals. They survived because they could adapt faster. A mammoth depended on its fur. A bear depended on hibernation. Humans depended on ideas. And ideas evolved far faster than biology. When conditions changed, humans changed with them. That ability transformed a vulnerable primate into the most adaptable species the world had ever seen. And here's the fascinating part. Every time you put on a winter jacket, turn on a heater, store food for later, or gather with family during cold months, you're participating in behaviors rooted deep in prehistory. The tools are different. The world is different. But the instincts remain. Because somewhere inside every modern human lives the descendant of people who survived impossible winters, people who stared into blizzards and refused to disappear. The next time winter arrives and you complain about the cold, remember this: your ancestors endured conditions that seem almost unimaginable today. They faced frozen landscapes, hunger, darkness, and uncertainty. Yet they survived, not because they were the strongest creatures on Earth, but because they were the most adaptable. And perhaps that is the real story of humanity. Not that we conquered nature, but that we learned, generation after generation, how to survive within it. If you enjoyed this journey into humanity's prehistoric past, subscribe to the channel, because the greatest survival story ever told may be the story of us.